I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today, I'm going to have a two-part program. The first part with my colleague who is joining me from Bahia in Brazil. And we want to continue the conversations we've been having about the war between Israel and the Palestinian group Hamas. I've got a couple of articles we've pulled up from national media, and we want to sort of go through those and get impressions and reactions. We'll be joined by another of our columnists who is Palestinian and African American. We're expecting that she'll be joining the conversation momentarily, but we'll begin there. Second part of the program, talking to a legacy leader in our community. Dr. Vincent Peter Hayden is the founder and outgoing retiring leader, CEO of Turning Point. Turning Point has been a leader in the country, I suspect in the world, in developing awareness and strategies that are culture specific. How do you bring the sensibility, the syntax, the context of the lived African American experience to the question of healing and sobriety? Well, Peter Hayden has been at the forefront of that exploration and has delivered powerfully for our community, leading Turning Point. That'll be the second part of the program. We'll actually be introducing you to his successor, Lori Wilson, who is a storied leader as well in our community. So that'll be part two of the conversation. Let me begin by bringing in my co-host for the first part, and that is my brother, my friend, Yoji Sena, who's joining me from Bahia in Brazil. Brother Yoji, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, we've been hanging out like this for several days in a row, it seems, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
Well, this is an important topic. So before I go into the three articles that we pulled up to discuss, and hopefully our friend Azmera Hammouri-Davis will join us, I want to say that my objective as a newsman and as a publisher is to bring as many points of view as possible. So we started this with the interview with Israel's Consulate General for the Midwest last week. We interviewed him, and the approach in the interview was to invite him to be as clear and as expansive as he would like to be in explaining and helping educate Americans and our people in particular about the situation between or in Gaza from the point of view of the Israeli government and from his point of view, the Israeli people. And we respect that. We respect that, and we encourage more conversation, not less. At the same time, we assured him and invited him to know that we'll be doing the same thing, reaching out to Palestinians, to residents of Gaza, to descendants, to relatives of Gaza and of Palestine, and to Muslim leaders, not only here, but around the country, perhaps around the world, to get a different sensibility, a different narrative, a different story. So in that spirit, we have this conversation. Yoji, when you and I talked last time, you brought an additional twist to the conversation by disclosing that you in Brazil are of Jewish heritage as well. And I think that brings another layer of both complexity and clarity to understanding how people view the challenges and hopefully healing that must happen for the sake of everybody. Well, let me do this. Let me start with this one article that I pulled up first, and it's an article that was in the New York Times. I think, we heard a little about the story, but not a lot. This was a story that was first published, I think, on November 30th and updated in December 2nd. The headline is Israel knew Hamas's attack plan more than a year ago. And it says a blueprint review by the Times laid out the attack in detail. Israeli officials dismissed it as aspirational and ignored specific warnings. And then, again, this is a piece originating in Tel Aviv, written by Ronan Bergman and Adam Goldman. I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs and open our conversation with that. It starts, Israeli officials obtained Hamas's battle plan for the October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it happened. Documents, emails, and interviews show. but Israeli military intelligence officials dismissed the plan as aspirational, considering it too difficult for Hamas to carry out. The approximately 40-page document, which the Israeli authorities codenamed Jericho Wall, outlined point by point exactly the kind of devastating invasion that led to the deaths of about 1,200 people. The translated document, which was reviewed by the New York Times, did not set a date for the attack, but described the methodical assault designed to overwhelm the fortifications around the Gaza Strip, take over Israeli cities, storm key Israeli military bases, including a division headquarters. And finally, the article says Hamas followed the blueprint with shocking precision. The document called for a barrage of rockets at the outset of the attack, drones to knock out the security cameras, and automated machine guns along the border, and gunmen to pour into Israel en masse in paragliders or motorcycles and on foot, all of which happened on October 7th. So, Yoji, let's stop there. Again, that article appeared first in the New York Times. I'm reading from the New York Times. It was published November 30th and updated December 2nd. An article by Ronan Bergman and Adam Goldman, reporting from Tel Aviv in the New York Times. Yoji, what are your thoughts?
Well, the rumors of the knowledge by the Israeli government about the plan, I start to hear it right after the attack. I regularly kind of now, because of what's going on every day, I do also watch Al Jazeera here, and I can have a different perspective, and they talk things about a different angle. So the thing is, it is possible. Also, it's hard to believe, but if they uh, if they in certain way thought down about that they didn't have that capability to do, right? They were in certain way relaxed about that, because also they are concentrated. Hamas until October 7th also fit the plan of the right-wing coalition of Israel. So they were okay with the Hamas ruling Gaza, and they were concentrated on the Palestinian Authority in Cisjordan. Um, so they were in certain way complices. They allowed I think it's Qatar to fund all the infrastructure. So they were in a virtual pact of with Hamas of coexistence in certain way, because it fits the narrative they want to sell inside of Israel. But we cannot forget that when the attack happened, the Israeli society was in turmoil for a long time about with the marches and rallies, protests against the interference of Netanyahu on the judiciary system of Israel. So the society was, very united against, in many ways, what is the Netanyahu government. So it could be a false flag operation. We could, there is several scenarios possible, because also the Israeli, it's the most advanced intelligence agency in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The Mossad and the Shin Bet, they are world famous. They pull out things that are incredible. So that they oversee, and they knew there was just sometimes with their feeling of superiority, they assume that those kind of people didn't have the capability and the intellectual capacity of pull such a complex attack.
I think you touch on something though that went through my mind, and that is if there was division over the direction of the Netanyahu government, strong opposition to it, what is needed to build cohesion back in the society to make it single-minded again, and in the direction of the present leadership, what will take the public mind off of those divisions that are based on kind of a diversity of opinion that exist among the Israelis. How do you minimize that and elevate this need and a spirit and a call for unity, just like as happened here after 9/11, kind of like as happened in this country in the 1940s when Pearl Harbor was attacked. There were questions then whether or not our nation knew that attack was imminent, but
What
expected it
Maduro is doing now in
and
Venezuela.
allowed it so that it would rally the public opinion. Let me stop there. It's speculation, but let me bring in our other guest. I mentioned she be joining us. We're glad she's here. And it's Azmera Hammouri-Davis, who's joining us from Harvard, I think. Azmera, are you at Harvard? I think you are.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Al. Hi, Yoji. Good to see you.
Hi.
Um, I'm calling in from the Tongva land in LA today.
Huh.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to be here. So
Well, let's do this. Let's have you share your credentials, first of all, who you are and why this topic is important to you. I introduced you before you came on I referred to you as a woman who is Palestinian and African American, but that's all I said. So let me have you introduce yourself if you would.
yes, I'm the daughter of a Palestinian American mother and a Black German father. I grew up in Kea'au, Hawaii, the land of the Kanaka Maole people, who've been fighting for their sovereignty since the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani around 1898. I am here. I'm a capoeirista. I was just with Yoji. I keep saying Yoji, Mestre Sena in Salvador Bahia with a group of women, including Dr. Irma and many others this past August, which was very rich. So I'm committed to engaging in questions of what does faith and what is the spiritual substance of our faith, if not speaking to questions of injustice. And I got my Master's of Theological Studies in African religions at Harvard Divinity School. So I'm grateful to be here.
Well, I'm grateful to have you here, and thank you for that background. So with that, let's jump in to what is unfolding in Gaza affects you, both personally, family, legacy, and intellectually and spiritually. Describe how you're feeling and seeing, and what are you resolving to do in your own personal life and educate people around.
Yeah, thanks for that question. How I'm feeling, I'm feeling heartbroken, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling what is the word? Disenchanted with the ongoing, the ways that our government, has not listened to its people. I am feeling disgusted at things that I'm seeing on social media of people who are reporting on these atrocities on the ground. I mean, I just woke up this morning learning that people who were seeking refuge in a school in northern Gaza were shot point blank, including babies. These are innocent people. These are civilians that have nothing to do with Hamas, and who are continuing to be massacred. And I'm feeling just disgusted at the silence, the selective empathy. I also am feeling particularly just disheartened by the lack of nuance when we talk about these issues and the institutional gaslighting that anyone who speaks up and cares about civilians being killed who happen to be Palestinian are deemed, are weaponized. And I'm feeling it is gross to me the ways that anti-Semitism has been weaponized to conflate a nation state with the people, which is leaving for even more anti-Semitism. At the same time, I'm feeling a lot of hope, finding courage in the coalition building that's happening with so many Jewish siblings. I am also organizing with Black Christians who have been to Palestine, and we recently did an action in DC and are continuing to organize because we know that people of faith, the Black church in particular, has a role to play. I mean, all people here in the US whose tax dollars go to funding this genocide are implicated and have blood on our hands, whether or not we know it or want to admit it. And so with that, I'm directing a lot of this sadness and heartbrokenness towards action, because we know that pity is not solidarity, despair is not solidarity, right? That's a privilege to have those things, but actually to act. And so I'm organizing with Black people who are people of faith, who grow up learning about places in Palestine like Jerusalem and Nazareth and Bethlehem, who want to know what the Palestinian Jew named Jesus had to say and the life that he lived under Roman occupation. I'm working with folks who understand that a liberation theology coming out of the tradition of James Cone and Howard Thurman is a liberation theology that's not just for some or for the chosen people, right? There's this chosenness doctrine along with the doctrine of discovery that again was used to undergird and justify by white evangelical Christians the pillaging, the raping, the plunging, and the enslavement of people here on this land in the US, that we're seeing sort of being exported and used to support this ongoing sort of project over the past 75 years, the settler colonization project. And in many ways, we see, the US sort of big brothering this particular state in enacting this genocide. And so for me, I'm also grappling with the ways that our faith has been used and co-opted to co-opt us into silence and to neutrality. That's some of what I'm holding.
As an activist and as a descendant of Palestine, is there a two-state solution? What is the solution?
Yeah, so
What
for
are the
people
solutions?
whenever this question comes up, for anyone who is serious about understanding what's been taking place on the land of Palestine, this question of two-state seems, it not only seems disingenuous, it seems completely just for people who are listening, who don't know anything, because I'm mindful that many people who are hearing or who may hear, they don't know that Palestinian Christians exist. They don't know that Palestinian Jews exist and have existed prior to 1948 and continue to. They don't know that there are millions of Jews, American Jews, who are standing up and saying, "Not in my name." They don't know about the Jewish Voice for Peace Coalition. They don't know about If Not Now movement. These are all American Jews who are organizing and saying, this does not represent the best of my tradition. And it's dangerous to conflate Judaism with Zionism. That Zionism is an ideology. And we know that there has been legislation recently passed, unfortunately, with, by predominantly conservative folks to state that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And we know that overlooks the millions of American Jews who are saying, that is not the case, not in my name. So I say that because it's important that people who are listening understand, and I'm mindful because, again, my learning came because I lived in Palestine and taught. I taught English and I taught Capoeira in Ramallah at the Ramallah Friends School as part of my Harvard Divinity School program for 2.5 months. And while there, I got to visit, my grandfather's land in El Khalil, which is today known as Hebron. It's the area where the tomb of the patriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, are located. And I also got to speak with Afro-Palestinians. I got to visit Jericho. I got to hear their stories of Afro-Palestinians who, came on their Hajj, which was really, after going to Mecca, they were going to Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, and they got caught. Many of them came from Nigeria, from Chad, from Sudan, and they got caught in the 1948 Nakba, and they stayed, and so they've been there for generations. So I got to hear and learn from their experiences. But I also got to see that just as any other land or space, Palestine is and was and will continue to be a multi-faith land where people practice a lot of different faiths, right? They come into this space. I think there's a way in which it is painted in the West that anyone who is Arab is Muslim, Muslims are terrorists, and therefore it's okay to justify killing everyone point blank period because they're all terrorists, because they're all Hamas sympathizers or supporters. I really want to disrupt that. I say that because your question was, is there a two-state solution? So for people who, first of all, there are people, former Israeli and in the Palestinian community, we call them Israeli Occupation Forces, IOF, not IDF. Defense suggests that you're defending yourself against what? Babies. So the IOF forces, former soldiers, have created organizations called Breaking the Silence, who are talking about what they were asked to do, what they were sanctioned, the heinous crimes they were sanctioned to play out on Palestinians day in and day out. They are breaking the silence. They are deemed terrorist organizations within the state of Israel because of their work. B'Tselem, who is a human rights organization, also documents the human rights abuses that have taken place continually. You all can find and learn about the settler movement, meaning the settlements that have continued to eat away at the West Bank, which was supposed to be Palestinian territory. All of these factors, the ongoing settlements, there's over 600,000 settlements that have been enacted since the 1967 quote unquote war, have disallowed for there to realistically be any form of a two-state solution, right? What I understand people to be Palestinians and Israelis who are coalition building. First of all, I want to say it's not up to me, obviously, or any of us, I would say, who are not in Palestine or Israel, to speak to what a solution might be or look like, right? Change comes from the inside. So it's our job to listen to what people who've been doing this work have been saying. But what I've been hearing them say is, just as in the US during the civil rights movement, Black people were not given the right to vote. They were not deemed, they were deemed property of their enslavers, and they weren't given the right to participate in this quote unquote democratic experiment because they weren't given the right to vote. Ta-Nehisi Coates talks a little bit about his recent trip. I would suggest people listen and go and find and learn, because there's a lot out there for you to learn. But people in the West Bank, Palestinians in the West Bank currently do not have the right to vote. They have to walk on different streets. They have to drive on different roads. They have to drink basically from different fountains. What all of the credible human rights organizations have deemed is taking place in Palestine is an apartheid. Not only is there a genocide newly happening in Gaza in a very direct way, but there is an apartheid taking place. What people are calling for, what I understand people when they're saying terms like, the term, what does from the river to the sea mean, right? Mm-hmm. If not now, a coalition of American Jews does a great job breaking down what that means. It means that from the Mediterranean River, where Palestinians currently are not given the right to vote, the right to own new land, their homes are being demolished, they deserve, or the right to movement. They're called freedom. Freedom and equality from that river all the way, if we know, to the Mediterranean Sea is where Gaza is. And they're in an open air cage, an open air prison. Some have termed it a concentration camp. It's a captive population that's been being bombed to oblivion for over 68 days now, with us just watching it on our phone screens. So from Palestinians from the sea, where they're not given the rights to move or to vote, all the way to from the river to the sea, they are demanding freedom and equality. What does that look like? It looks like in the US, what we have demanded, we demand freedom and equality, right? We demand the right to vote. We demand citizenship, right? That is engaging in a project of democratic pluralism, right? So this notion that, this term from the river to the sea has been sort of deemed an inherent call for an annihilation of Jews. There must be a point where we get to the reality that one people's safety can never and ought not ever come at the expense of another's freedom. And again, this is not me coming up with unique thoughts. This is me regurgitating what so many people have already said. Jewish practitioners in particular, who I'm learning from, and Palestinian practitioners as well, who lived and who grew up in Palestine, right? So I just want to make sure that we offer that up. I would suggest people watch this documentary film. Again, it showcases some of the indoctrination that many American Jews they created this for their community. It's called Israelism, and it's a film that people can rent online at different periods and points. But I really would implore folks to watch that. I also would implore you to learn more about combatants for peace. Community orgs have been doing this transformative work. The new world that we want to live into is already being created. But of course, what we're seeing is governments not listening to their people, which is reflective of what we're experiencing here in the US, and obviously in Brazil in different ways. But even still, I mean, the UN General Council just voted yesterday, quasi unanimously for a permanent ceasefire. Obviously, that's not binding, and so it is yet to be determined whether or not that will be enacted. But the
U.S. vetoed it, I believe, right?
Oh yeah, the U.S. Yes, the U.S. has been consistent in their veto of it. But I really want to lift that up, because what people are calling for by speaking up and saying, "Hey, I don't think babies should be shot point blank, period, in the dead of night while they're sleeping." The moment we lift up our voice and say, "Hey, this is wrong," it's read as terrorism, or it's read as, it's read as like, what do you want? What do you want people to do? Just die in silence and let that be, right? And we know that in the history of any resistance movement, that's never been the case, right? People resist. We know that during the slave rebellions, Nat Turner, again, people can listen to, learn from Norman Finkelstein. His parents were Holocaust survivors. He recently came on, his work is everywhere. He talks, and he's been documenting the realities that Gazans have lived under he's dedicated his life to it. Learn from Dr. Gabor Mate, who he himself was a baby who was a Holocaust survivor. Norman Finkelstein wrote a book on the industry, the exploitative, the ways in which the Holocaust industry exploits that Jewish trauma. I'm lifting this up because I really want to make clear that by deeming any call for Palestinian dignity and freedom to be an inherent call for the annihilation of a people, it's ingenuine, it's inaccurate, and it's not productive if we're going to talk truthfully about any possibility for peace. And that
when you hear Israel and its representatives saying that it's going to completely destroy Hamas, how do you read that? Because what I asked the Consul General is that, how do you say you're going to eliminate, remove from existence Hamas, unless you intend to remove from existence all the Palestinian people? How do you hear it?
So in the US, we have a problem with active shooters, right? We have an issue, and often they're white terrorists who go and shoot up schools. They're the ones that are engaging in a lot of real anti-Semitism, shooting up the synagogue in Philadelphia years ago. Imagine there's an active shooter in a school, and the US president says, "All right, we got to bomb the whole school." Imagine there's a shooter near a hospital or inside the hospital, and then President Biden says, "Go ahead, let it rip. Bye to that entire hospital." Would we ever be okay with that as Americans? Would we ever be okay? It doesn't matter if, and this was one of the South African government officials who stated, for him, I don't care if there is the leader of this group in that hospital. You don't bomb that hospital. You don't bomb that school. Where is the moral decency? So the fact that most of the American people, over a recent poll showed that over 60% of Americans want a ceasefire. Obviously, our government is not listening to that. And there's a big sort of, AIPAC is a strong lobbying group that has been pretty clear and consistent in their messaging around, what they're telling our current administration to say, to do, to not do. I just really want us to be able to hold what it means to be sanctioning a collective punishment, right? Imagine, okay, what happened on January 6, 2021? A bunch of white, I would argue they used the Bible to justify white evangelical nationalists went and stormed the Capitol. Biggest threat to our democracy in modern history, some might argue. Imagine, because they did that, everyone, whoever's in LA, Boston, Florida, Texas, Hawaii, everyone, y'all are all terrorists. Y'all are all terrorists because of what this small group did. Like the absurdity of these kinds of arguments, the fact that people aren't making these connections, that's dangerous. It's a slippery slope to me. It's a very slippery slope.
We're
Because
about out of time.
go ahead.
Azmera, Yoji, question, comment to close out before we go to the next segment. This has been great to hear your voice.
Yes, yes.
Azmera, I want to make sure that as much as your schedule permits, we come back, because I think this conversation can't be capsuled into half an hour or 1 hour. I think this is about talking for a long period of time, over a lot of things. And I'm grateful that you are willing to talk and you speak with such clarity and conviction. I thank you for that. But Yoji, question, comment before we close this segment out?
Well, my comment, everything that Azmera is saying, it's exactly the American template. Israel is doing what, as I said the other way, everything in Israel is a template of the American experience. This high influx of European Jews into Palestine that took over the Mizrahi Jews, right? The Palestinians, Christians, Palestinians, they're Jews. So there are this high influx of Europeans, in this case Jews, that exercise colonialism in the land of Palestine. And during the existence, the last 75 years, is a military society, and what they're doing, punish the people of Palestine, of Gaza, is similar to what they did punish the people of Afghanistan because of the 9/11, right? They went and how many civilians, and then Iraq, all this stuff. So it's the template that Westerns use, Europeans use, be them Jewish or Christians, you know.
It's like
It's
carpet bombing Vietnam, for example.
exactly,
Same
it's
thing. Listen, we're out of time. But listen, thank you, Yoji, and thank you, Azmera. We'll continue this conversation and keep creating ways to sort of provide analysis. As I said before you joined, I also invited the Consul General from Israel for the Midwest to be on the program, and I've extended him the same invitation to come back again and again. My objective is more conversation, more argument, more information, and keeping us both aware and hopefully moving towards saving lives. Guys, thank you so much. We'll take a break and come back with the second part of our show. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. Findhelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit findhelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at findhelp.org. If you need help starting anew, findhelp.org is the site for you. I'm Al McFarlane, and we're back at the Conversation with Al McFarlane, and I'm glad to do part two of the show, calling on my friend and colleague, Dr. Peter Hayden, who is the founder and leader, retiring in the next several days, I think, from Turning Point, and his successor at the helm of the organization, Lori. I'm having a senior moment here. Lori Wilson, right? Guys, come on in. Let's say hello to you, and thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Well,
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So two things. Let's make the official announcement here. I'm going to go to you, Dr. Hayden. And if you got some official announcements to make, let's make it right here on the Conversation with Al McFarlane.
Well, thanks, Al. You and I have been friends for a long time. We come out of Kansas City, Missouri, and I came up here, went to the U for a short period of time, and went into treatment. That was the thing that turned my life around, went to treatment. And Henry Sullivan and I, who are co-founders of Turning Point, didn't see anybody look like the three of us. And that was a concern. Mm-hmm. And going through treatment, I got support and help from Hennepin County, because that's where I was working at that time, and really figured out how we could start a turning point. And so it's a turning point of our lives and my life. And I thank you for allowing me. A lot of people are saying, well, aren't you concerned? What are you going to do? I'm not concerned at all, because we found the right person. So here's the deal. Been sober 50 years, been at Turning Point 47 years. It's time. I've been there too long, in a sense, in the position I'm in. Things have changed. Dr. Lee at Hazelden went through all the presidents from the time I've been born and to the time that we have been helping men and women at Turning Point. And it's the right time. But you also, Al, have to find the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you talk to Lori, you're going to see that we found the board of directors, the chair, Alex Tittle, and many people who are on our board agreed that Lori was the right person. I heard you talking earlier about her legacy, and Ray Island,
Yep.
and who was a mentor of ours.
Yep.
Ray was working for
you.
Pillsbury and
Yep.
came to the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was time. Everything came together in my mind. And so at the end of this year, I will be stepping down as the president and CEO of Turning Point. But Lori's going to allow me, and the board is going to allow me to be what they call the founder. And so I'm very excited about that, because I'm going to be able to work more with our people. But the thing is that I'm going to be able to share this program around the country.
Mm-hmm.
Turning Point is known, as you said, around the world. I mean, literally around the world. And so I'm excited. I'm happy. My wife said, "Will you have to be going to work every day?" And I said, "No, baby. I'll be doing some more things with you." But I'm very, very happy. And I want to just say to the board of directors, y'all have done the right thing. The succession plan was done properly with the leadership of Alex Tittle. And so I'm excited.
Well, let's introduce Lori. Lori, let me have you introduce yourself. I did say before that, and Peter mentioned too, your dad is a mentor to me and to Peter and a whole bunch of other people. He was a pioneering work in both the government and then in the corporate arena. Yeah. And in community is and was and remains stellar work. So, and then your mom was such a wonderful and powerful and loving and giving, nurturing person as well. So your family is one that, in my view, reflects what it means to be conscious and determined and successful Black people. And you and your siblings are fine examples of what happens when our families are intentional and don't quit. So, Lori, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
Yourself, if you would, talk about you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. McFarlane. And Dr. Hayden, it's going to be an awesome opportunity for me. Man, I don't know what it would be like without Turning Point. We've had this in the community for almost 48 years coming up. And so it just didn't seem right to just let it go after Peter left. So I, am excited. I think that being here in North Minneapolis, where I was born and raised, I think walking up and down Golden Valley Road, I want folks to be able to do that. And I think Turning Point is going to allow us to keep folks healthy and clean. So, but I appreciate the opportunity. I think that Peter, to his it's funny, I didn't think Peter was ever going to step down. He's 80 now. And so I'm like, I think he's going to be there for life. I don't know that he's ever going to leave. And for him to trust me with that, this is his baby, and so I appreciate that, Peter. I'm saying that here. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the love that you've supported me with. And it's been an awesome opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah.
So let me ask either of you or both of you to explain again the value proposition. What's the philosophical underpinning about our people understanding, taking ownership of sobriety, of overcoming and not being permanently devastated by some bad choices we make for all kinds of reasons. So how does Turning Point show up and help people show up differently, show up in their best selves, having come through, and having reasserted their intention to be their authentic self, a clean self? Peter, start with you. And let's just have a general conversation and flow on each other on this. But Dr. Hayden,
Sure.
you're the mastermind.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I hold this medallion close to you that you're looking at. It says 50 years of sobriety. And that's what we're going to do more of. And it's good that I've been asked to be the ambassador, because now I can sit down in front of people. See, running Turning Point, you know how tough it is, Al. I've talked to you many times. Why haven't they supported us when we've been here, etc.? Now we'll have an opportunity to do that. And then with the leadership of Lori, we're going to get this done, because most people don't even know that there's a Black man that's been sober 50 years. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. I mean, why would we not know that a Black man has stayed sober 50 years and not put it on TV and radio consistently?
Mm-hmm.
But they'll do that if there's some other things going on, shooting drugs on the corner of the bus stop, things of this nature. And so that's going to be part of my job in alliance with Lori, because she's going to direct me if I'm not right. She's going to tell me. But I want to be that support system. You know how we used to do it, Al, is that if Al said this thing isn't going properly, and then they would call us, and I'd say, Al's right. And so that's how I see myself supporting not only Lori, but getting this piece done.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, what do you think?
I would just add to that Turning Point's been a family. We have counselors that have family members that have gone through the program, and some that have gone through the program themselves. And so we embrace all our clients. Our clients are very near and dear to us. So one, I think understanding where they're coming from and how the whole notion of culturally specific is real, right? We are a culture that understands one another, and to treat someone who is sick, it's nothing different than treating someone that is sick in your family. That's what we're doing, right? And so just taking it on as a holistic approach. Not only are we trying to treat that addiction, but we're also trying to make sure that once they leave the doors of Turning Point, that they can become citizens, right, of the neighborhood. And so we've got our housing program. We have our group residential program down the street on Emerson. We have our housing over on Golden Valley Road. So we're really here to understand what's happening and then get down to the root of the issues.
Take a minute. You mentioned the different programs. Go through those a little bit more, Lori. Give people who might not be as familiar with the components of Turning Point, particularly the residential and the different sites that you have.
Yep. So here on Golden Valley Road, we have a residential treatment program. It's a 90-day high intensity program, meaning you are in here 90 days going through the program and understanding what you need to do to get outside of this program. We also have an outpatient program that we
How do
have.
people come to that program? Do they check themselves in? Do the courts
That-
order them in?
Yep,
Or
it's
they're-
checking themselves in, court ordered, family ordered, you know. So we take folks. It's a walk-in type of facility. So we take all referrals, and so what I had mentioned earlier, you know, we're going to take it until the walls we can't take them anymore, right? And so we have partners around us that if we can't do it, we've also are working with other partners around us to refer to them. So. But it's a really unique program here, like I said, with the culture specific piece to it. So then we also on Emerson, we have our group residential housing. And typically after they leave the high intensity program, they go over to sorry, I thought you were talking to me, Peter, to our group residential housing on Emerson. We have a license for 30 beds over there. Here is 24, and we're working to increase that. But we have a license for 30 beds for our group residential housing program. We also have on Glenwood 2 apartment buildings right on 2105 and 2021 Glenwood, where it's our sober housing. And so we are in the process. Thank you to the state of Minnesota. I'll shout out Senator Bobby Joe Champion for getting us the money from the state. And then our Mayor Fry and Councilmember Vitaw getting us the money over there for the city to help with our housing, to make sure it's up to par.
How many units on Glenwood? And what's
There's 17 on one building and then 14 in the other.
And these are for people, again, who've come through the 90-day experience. And this is part of their transition.
Sober housing.
Okay. And so let me ask you both to talk about the need, because I'm concerned as a resident of the community. I've been here for forever, it seems, but I drive down West Broadway, for example. Actually, I was pulling up at the U.S. Bank deposit window one day over there off of Broadway, going through the drive-in. And while I'm making my deposit, I'm seeing this young brother, sitting over almost under where they used to have you could see in, you can't see anymore, but sitting on the ground, bent over, nodding out. And I said, man, I can't believe I'm seeing this right in the bank drive-through lane. And then you drive down the street and you look at the congregation at the bus shelter. We got a problem.
We do.
We got a big problem. And so the question becomes, Dr. Hayden and Lori, how are we as a community, and what will we as a community do to address our own children, our brothers and sisters who have fallen and are falling? I also say that I lost my own grandson to an overdose last month. And so it's not just news or theoretical, it's personal for me. And I think everybody that I've talked to has somebody in their life too that is going through or has gone through or will probably go through. What do we do? How do we approach that, Dr. Hayden? How do we build a community?
I think we start with Lori, because you just hired Dwayne and some people like that. And if you go that way, then I can talk on the other side with regards to the politics and some of the things that haven't been happening, but with Councilwoman Vital and the money, and now that this money is starting to flow, I'll talk on that side. If you can talk to the staff.
So so we've done a lot in terms of our staffing, making sure that we can address those types of issues. But one thing I'll say is, you mentioned community. We have a lot of partners in the community to help us with this. There's this, I do the same thing. I drive down Broadway, Lowry, and then I see it, and I'm like, how can we do this? How can we come together and collaborate? And one thing I'll say, that, because to your point, Mr. McFarlane, the younger generation, it's really hitting them hard, and education is key. They need to understand what it is, and how do we prevent them from going down that road. Because and there's a lot of things that have happened, in my own family as well, but they just need to be educated. I think education is key. Having these forums, we just attended, Dr. Hayden and I just attended the forum on Friday, and you couldn't say it enough. Education is major. And so we have a staff, we have a treatment director that we just hired, Dwayne Hicks, and we have a clinical supervisor who is very instrumental too. Her name is Omika Johnson. And so we're really trying to beef up the folks that we have on staff so we can handle things. I mean, opioid addiction is different. It's different from what we've taught back 20 years ago with crack cocaine. And so it's a different type of drug. The concept in terms of trying to address it may be the same, but honestly, it's we have to have people who are educated to be able to treat it and to get that education out to the community.
So, how do we reach these people? We do it several different ways. One of the ways my concern has been is that what we're talking about, you can't just spend a couple of dollars treating people if you don't have the stability and the foundation. And that comes back now working with the opioid task force. That comes with working with Hennepin County, because the money is not just to feed people and treat people like they are slum. There are people who are in the parking lot, you said, but we have ideas. We brought on a whole different board just to look at, the marketing side, the development side, and these kinds of things. Also, if you remember, Al, a few years ago, we had drug-free weekend. And that's where we're going to be. And that's a collaboration that Lori's talking about with Reverend McAfee, the 21 Days of Peace, and all those kinds of people, and meet them where they're at. And that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be out in the community again. You're going to see Turning Point. You're going to not only heard that we've been around 47 years, but you're going to see them. We're going to start touching base with the relatives and the families of people who have gone through to testify how well we've done. So that's how we're going to do that. And we're going to be looking for you to help us. Remember when you used to go where we were at, you'd have a radio show. And you would be saying, I'm here with Turning Point. This is what we do. If you need some help, we got housing, you can treatment, all those kinds of things. So that's where, I don't know if that answered your question, but I got excited.
It gets in the right direction. My question is really a big one, and it's about how do we, not just Turning Point, but figure out how we provide resources to institutions.
There you go.
To solution makers in our community. And here's what I believe. This is what I have observed over the 50 years that I've been in business. And I capsulize it with this saying, this is an Al McFarlane-ism. Too often, we get the misery, they get the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
They make money on our misery. Their incentive is to keep us in misery, so they keep making money. The more misery we have, the more money they make. Now, the antidote is what's important, and that is to move our people into understanding that we're not the problem, we are the problem solvers. Right. And the problem will not be solved until it begins to be a solution that comes from within, and that we have a right to demand and receive resources, our share of the public treasury, because we build the treasury for the benefit of the whole state, the whole city, the whole county. And we should be able to expect that we get access to the tools and financial resources we need to continue delivering solutions to to individuals and families in our community.
Mhm.
And we have to start with the idea of us understanding that our health is our business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's our business. And we in the business of being healthy individually, family, and community. That's the
that's why
mindset.
that's why we're starting the town hall meetings. That's why, because you got to train people to understand. Otherwise, what has happened is people have just gotten content.
Mhm.
It's like drive-by shootings. You don't even duck anymore.
Mhm.
But so you don't, you see people on the bus stop in the corners, and you just go past them.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're going to start doing different things. We're going to have house meetings and things of this nature. Because Jesse Jackson said when white people sneeze, black people catch cold.
Mm.
And so that's what you're saying, and that's where we're going to be. And we're going to need your help in other uh, institutions like the CCOs and things of this nature to not just pass by when they say Turning Point's having a town hall meeting or they're getting together and collaborating with other organizations. Well, we've heard that before. It's like George Floyd. George Floyd was in Turning Point.
Mhm.
There's a book that the Post, Washington Post wrote a big chapter on Turning Point and George Floyd. Why can't we get that information out better? Well, we're going to take it upon ourselves, but we need to find the dollars, and that's
Mhm.
where my job is going to come in along with Lori.
Yeah.
Okay. What events are on the docket to support and to mark this transition? Any big events coming up or planned for the rest of the year?
Well, we got a few. um, we are trying to host a breakfast. We're also looking at doing a golf tournament. It has proven that we've got a lot of people in Minnesota that like to golf, including myself. So
Uh-huh.
I think that's going to be a good one to do, and just a couple other things that Peter is going to host, just to get the word out. And again, it's really communication, trying to get it out there, and so that people can hear it, understand it, and know exactly what we do here at Tournament.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. That's great. We've gone a long ways, especially after we got our new chair, Alex Tittle. I don't know if you know Alex, but
Of course I do. Of course I do.
okay. And so Alex has brought a whole mindset in. The transition piece has gone under his watch, and I'm so happy that he didn't come up and say, "Well, you're 80 years old and you got to go now." But I mean, we looked at those kinds of things, and his leadership and direction is just unbelievable. And as you know, I got Don Shelby sitting here with me to make sure that I do the right thing. But I'm saying that because he's on the marketing committee.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that we're doing now, Al, is making sure we got the experts to help us, and that we have the relationship that we will listen to the things that you say. So, for example, some of the ideas that you have, we're going to have to talk about that in the first of the year, if you're okay with that, because your knowledge is just as important as our knowledge.
Well, I want to commend you on having Alex Tittle and Don Shelby and the other members of your board. Don is a national treasure and certainly a Minnesota treasure. So you and him last night and Lori at
Yes.
the Bobby Joe Champion fundraiser. What a wonderful event. And it was good to
Yes.
see all of us together there, sort of on one accord. And the
Yes.
accord is that we both have a duty and a right to serve our people, and that we believe that in serving our people properly, we serve the state of Minnesota.
That's
And
right.
that if we don't do our part, the state loses, right?
That's
So
right.
that's why we stand up and we ask and we demand and we receive and we invest and we create and we collaborate. We are building change. And as we build the change, we build it by being the change as well. Well, that certainly describes what you have done, Dr. Peter Hayden,
Hey.
You've been a champion and a visionary. I love to, I just remember hearing you talk about your arrival at sobriety. And it's a story that once somebody hears it, they never forget, because you talk about the epiphany and the awakening and the awareness that changed your life. And that allows you to change the lives of so many, many, many more of our brothers and sisters in this city and around the country. Look, we're out of time. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.